welcome everybody to the Accelerate program. What an exciting program. I hope you guys are taking advantage of all of the services and things. We've been affiliated, I'm sure you know, for many years. We started the first LaunchBox session. Our pilot operation was actually started right here in this room. So you guys are about the 6th class that we've had go through since 2010. So welcome aboard. We're going to take a look at, and this is a fun session, so it's interactive, it's engaging. If you have questions, please feel free to ask them as we go through. And I may be repeating them back just so that everybody in the room can hear what we're asking. I wanted to bring a couple of things that as you plan and get ready for your product launch, your company launch, your services launch, some of the best and some of the worst of the worst. We want to make sure you guys are in the best of the best category. Product launch is something that everybody thinks happens with this big explosion and these big fireworks, and then other companies just say, oh, you know, I think our product's already out there. How many of you are finding that you're actually sitting down and planning and methodically thinking about how you'll launch your company or your product or your services? Yeah, most of you, good. You're ahead of the game because most people take this approach. Did we do it? I don't know, my eyes were closed, and all of a sudden your product's out and it's not out with the right messaging. It's not out with the intent that you wanted it to be out with. And there's a couple of companies, very well-known companies, that have done it really well over the last 10 years. And then there's a couple of other really well-known companies that have had misses when they've launched a certain product. So one of the best ones, what do you think? What's one of the best product launches you guys think you've seen in the last 10 years? Good? iPhone? You're right. The best company launch was Apple. Apple has had 3 products in the top marketing product launches in the last 10 years. 3 products. Each time you can see that the growth of their product has grown exponentially financially and time to market. One of the things that you'll learn as you get your products in gear and your company's ready to go out to market is everybody wants to build a relationship. And that's what Apple did best, right? They started some buzz, they started conversations, they gave out a couple of iPads and a couple of things internally and got the hype going and got the buzz going and got the conversation going. And that's what you want to do. You want to build up conversation. In today's marketing world, what we find is people still do business with people they know and trust. And even more so now, they can ask on one platform, on Facebook or on Twitter or another social network site, they can ask one question about a product and get 70 people that they know, that they're familiar with, give them responses back. This is a trusted relationship, and that's exactly what Apple's done. So how about the worst launch? Any thoughts?
Color.
I'm sorry?
From the startup world, but color.
Color? Okay. Any other bad product launches you guys have seen or heard?
What was Microsoft's, it was last year you're asking?
No. It's sometime in the last decade.
But Microsoft's answer to the
Zoom.
yes, the Zoom.
The
That's
Zoom?
too similar for this, I think.
But you're close. You're right on.
Well, this
Uh-huh.
happened yesterday. EA just released SimCity.
Exactly.
It was horrible.
And what made it horrible?
They were not prepared for the number of people that were going to sign on and use the service.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my son waited months for that to come out, and the servers crashed or
Servers
something.
Yes.
crashed, they stopped letting people get on, and then they had to start taking down certain features because it was too intensive. Now they have to go get more service. This is a
And will people trust them the next time they bring this back out?
People were asking for refunds.
Exactly. We don't want you asking for refunds.
And I hear,
What a
it's
classic,
amazing.
Yeah.
what a classic thing of creating great buzz and getting everybody so like jazzed and not being prepared. I mean, that would be, just.
And that hasn't happened for a lot of years, right? So it happened when .coms first started coming about back in the early 90s when these companies were starting to launch. Victoria's Secret had their first big runway on-air show. They didn't plan properly from a bandwidth perspective, and the show crashed and burned about 15 minutes into it. I know that because I happened to be working for the data hosting company at the time, and my phone was ringing off the hook. So audience, knowing who your audience is, knowing the magnitude that the audience can be is a big critical portion of knowing your launch is going to be successful or not. So the worst was Microsoft. But it wasn't what you think. It was actually, the worst launch was the Clippy. Any of you remember the Clippy? How many of you were annoyed by that little paperclip dancing around on your screen? And initially, you couldn't make it go away. When they first launched it, you could not make that little guy disappear. And it was actually born out of the girlfriend at the time of the founder, so of Bill Gates. So no matter how well known you are, no matter how long you've been exposed in your industry or in your field, you still can have a bad launch. Okay? Couple things that make your launch successful or failure. It's very simple. It's the basic marketing principles. We added the people. Marketing in general takes into account place, price, promotion, and product. We added the people. More and more, especially now with social media and social marketing and social networking, more and more it revolves around the people. So we actually put people first. You have to know who your audience is. You have to know where they are. You have to know how to get to them and multiply that times the amount of promotion that you do. What used to take 3 touches to get through to somebody now takes 9 touches just to break through the noise. That's a lot of effort. That's a lot of work. How do you reach somebody 9 times in different ways? What do you think? How are some of the ways that companies target you to reach out? I'm sorry?
Social media.
Social media? Yep.
Direct mail.
Direct mail, absolutely. And it's making a huge comeback.
It is. Email.
Email, another good way.
Even through like Hulu.
Hulu, absolutely. Some of the Google Hangouts and Google Chats, right? They'll set up a session where it used to be webinar. Now they'll invite you to hang out, and they'll do a product promotion or an opportunity, an advertising thing. What are some of the other ways that you can reach people? Are they reaching?
And targeted ad placements on YouTube.
Advertisements, yep.
Events.
Events, absolutely. You're missing one big one.
Word of mouth.
Word of mouth. Talk to people, whether it's picking up the phone and making an inquiry or calling someone, making a phone call into an existing account or company or to a new prospect. Having people willing to give testimonial to what it is you're doing. You still cannot beat word of mouth. The platforms on social networking sites like Facebook and Twitter, they've given you a written voice, if you will, but still nothing beats picking up the phone and saying, hey, Elizabeth, what do you think of X product? I trust Elizabeth. I know that Elizabeth is going to tell me the truth, whether it will work for me or not work for me, and I'll take her opinion into account when I go to make my purchase. So building that trust, building that relationship is at the core of everything from a product marketing perspective. How do you get the word out in other ways, right? There's all this stuff going on, and most of you hit all of these. The case study I don't think we spoke about, and written articles or advertorials. Having the opportunity to know what's going on within your industry and within your market, and being able to send a link to an article. Hey, I know that this might be important to you. I know you guys were talking about doing X when we last met, so I thought I'd share this article with you. Or, hey, I've just written an article, thought you might want to see it before it actually hits the press. Now all of a sudden they've put me in an elite position, right? I'm special. You sent me something out before it went out to anybody else. Now I may have been one on 900 mailing list and it just was personalized to look like it was coming specific to me. But it's about that making people feel connected. That creates a successful launch. What does it mean to be social? How many of you know the statistics for social media, social networking, social marketing? And when I use those, you really can use those interchangeably. If you're social marketing, you're using some sort of a social media platform, and you're networking, whether you realize you are or not. Every time you send out a tweet, you're networking within a community. Okay? So I have a little video here that I just want to share. Through the Launchbox, we use a lot of videos, not because we can't share the same message, but sometimes it's more powerful to share it with you in a bigger format. just a little interesting facts, just a few statistics. So do you think social media is here to stay? Is it going to be a platform for which you build, grow, and encourage your business to reach new heights? Absolutely it is. Social media is not going anywhere. It will evolve, just like when we all got email for the first time. I can remember when I first was able to send a fax. Wasn't quite sure how you put that into that little box, and it came out across the country. Now sending emails is gone by the wayside, just like faxes did. It always surprises me when a customer or a client will say, "Can you fax that to me?" No, but I can scan it in and email it to you, or I can shoot it over in a text. A lot of people, and it's generational, right? Generation Y and Z will never, probably ever send a fax. They just won't. Those are my kids and the kids right behind them. And my kids are in the ages of 19 and 24. So they're not babies, they're not infants, but the things are changing. Fulia, when your daughter becomes 17 or 18, imagine what the differences will look like. It's
Just a quick thing. She knows this as a phone, iPhone as a phone. We were looking at a book with like the words, and
Uh-huh.
there was a telephone. And I said, "This is a phone," and she's looking at me like, "No, this is a phone." She
You're
has
right.
and we don't have a home phone, so she has no idea.
And she's how old?
16 months.
exactly. So even under 2, they're starting to know things much differently. How many of you still have a home phone, a landline?
I just got rid of mine actually.
Because you don't need it, right? For the most part, I still have one as well, but my kids would tell you it's just because I'm old-fashioned and if we live in the country and if the power goes out, I won't have anything. Yes, I know my cell phone still works. It's a comfort level for me. It's not
It's
a
an age
necessity.
thing. It's an age thing, I'm sorry.
It absolutely is.
My son was like, "You should have given it up years ago. Why do we have a phone?"
It is. It's gone by the wayside along the way of fax and handwritten letters. Although I will tell you, handwritten letters and handwritten notes are making a quick comeback. Just as digital and print marketing pieces, direct mail pieces, are really making a comeback.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Let me ask a
no,
question.
that's fine. Absolutely, please do.
Yeah, I think there's like, definitely on the direct mail side, I've done a ton of direct mail marketing in the past. And it's something like things trend away from it, it becomes
It's the new
more
thing.
valuable thing. It kind of loops back around. Based on your experience, what have you seen with like the younger generation when it comes to email? Like you're saying, a lot of people are moving away from that, text messages and social media. What kind of trends are you seeing in email from a marketing perspective? Are people completely ignoring their inbox, or are the response rates up because there's less people doing it now? They're focused on social media, or is there a trend that can come around in email marketing?
There are, and you're absolutely right. So when you do the direct mail, what do you find is your response? Are you getting what you expected from it? Are you getting a high call-in or a high web
Our
hit?
response rate has been pretty good.
Good.
Lately, my experience only goes back about 6 or 7 years. So, I have limited experience over a long period of time, but a lot.
But in
of
this day and age,
exposure
6 or 7 years
Yeah.
is a lifetime.
Okay, yeah, but I have seen, dips and valleys and whatnot in the direct mail market, but it's actually remained fairly steady when you kind of consider the overall marketing.
Sure.
It's been pretty steady and expected.
Good. When you send a direct mail piece out, what is your intent? What do you want to get back when you send that piece out?
Phone call.
A phone call? Do you include your website on it?
Yeah.
So are you tracking your print marketing with your Google Analytics to see where there might be some spikes from? So if you send out a direct marketing piece, a direct mail piece, and give it about 5 to 7 days, are you then marrying back to your Google Analytics to see if you've had any type of spike in your website business?
Yeah, on the website, as far as traffic, we haven't tracked, but as far as obviously conversions,
Sure.
it's a squeeze page, so.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess the market we're in, I don't know, but like it's almost all phone calls. We get some text messages, we say call or text this number.
Good.
And when we added that in, we started getting about 30% of the responses were text.
Fantastic.
So people do want to text, obviously, that was a big, help with.
Because it's
response rate.
immediate, they don't have to leave a voicemail,
And
right?
you don't want to, sometimes you don't want to talk. All right.
Sure, no, you're right.
And so, but yeah, like actually the phone call's been the highest return out of the web text call.
Good.
So yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to get your opinion.
There is a trend, and you're right. When something starts to trend away, when people are onto the newest thing, right? They're onto the iPad, they're onto the mini iPad, they're onto texting versus emailing versus faxing. When something starts to trend away and then you do something that's considered different, and at this point in time, direct mail is considered different, although it's making a huge comeback. We have a number of customers that have direct mail piece campaigns. Even the U.S. Postal Service is running direct mail campaigns, right? Direct to every door. So for a low nominal fee, you can send a postcard, you can send a flyer, you can send some sort of promotional material for a much lower rate than if you went down and mailed it yourself. You can go through their program. So they're trying to bring direct mail back, probably for different reasons than we are, but they're trying to stay in business.
I smile because I use that click to mail.
See?
Yeah.
There you go. And there's a lot of services out there like that. They make it an affordable option to reach a wide platform. Now, like anything, any tool, the direct mail, direct to every home is not always the best for your business. We have one particular client that focuses solely on high-end deck, patio, and landscaping work. To send out to every household wouldn't work for them. They have a very specific, very targeted market. They tend to run direct mail lists of homes that have a combined income of $500,000 and greater. So to send it out and saturate an area of homes that are making $75,000 to $100,000 isn't going to do them anything except cost them money. So know who your audience is, and it keeps circling back to that. People are responding to direct mail. Keep it in your campaign. It's a great one-touch option. Maggie, I think you have.
Did you ask something about email marketing too?
Yes.
Because one of the things that I've noticed is that email is making a comeback too, but it's different than it used to be. It's not spray and pray anymore, where you just now you have to offer. You have to have something that's useful or something worthwhile to people to engage them. So that whole you pulling them to you, that inbound piece is what is different about email marketing. And if you do it well, it's very effective. I'm still getting a lot of spray and pray type email. I don't know if you guys do too, and those get deleted immediately, But the ones that offer something useful or something that they know about me because they've done their research and they know I'm a target client of theirs, I'm more likely to engage in those, I think.
Yeah, to Maggie's point, the spray and pray isn't as effective, and those are the ones. So they don't have a compelling subject line. They don't have a compelling what's in it for me as the consumer, right? There has to be something of that. So read this email and download this white paper or this case study, or here's a link to take you to a video that might be attractive for you. There has to be something compelling in it, and it's not just blanket information going out anymore that, dear Laura, or dear sir, or dear whomever. It has to be, again, personal and related. One of the statistics that we saw in that video was that many consumers now are being targeted and focused from social media, right? They're not driving you to their page unless you've seen something that's appealing to you. So how many of you have been on Facebook and those little ads down the side and you wonder, shoes, shopping, all of these things are targeted to me. There's a reason behind it, right? You've all seen those little ads. Have you ever stopped to really look at those ads? And are they something that you would be likely to purchase or to click on? Anybody pay attention to those Facebook ads on the side?
They've got me nailed.
Yeah.
They absolutely have me nailed.
Pay attention. The next time you go on, if Facebook, I'm told by my kids now Facebook is even passé. Everything's Twitter these days. But if you take a look, pull up your Facebook account and take a look at the advertising that's there. It's probably fairly specific to things that you've talked about on Facebook or some of the other social sites, or that you've liked on other people's pages. All of that information goes into this big collective database, and they're targeting you. They're targeting you on purpose, and that's a new form of advertising. Doesn't work for everybody. Not everybody's going to click through, and sometimes those click-throughs can be really expensive. We had one client that was spending $25,000 a month in click-through ads. They were only driving $10,000 of revenue. Is that a smart choice? No, they were losing $15,000 a month. They didn't know who their audience was. They were a company that rented high-end charter airplanes and boats and motor coaches. Nobody's booking those from seeing a little ad on the right side of their Facebook page. They're just not. It's a more intimate purchase. It's a more custom approach. So they lost a lot of money, and we finally pulled them out of doing the Google boards. How many of you track your social marketing, your social media, your tweets? Good. How are you tracking it?
Hootsuite.
Hootsuite. Yay! We love you.
Boy, are you going to use him as an example later on?
So what do you do? What do you do with Hootsuite? Tell us what your approach is.
I try to, whenever I'm sending out a message, so we had Hopkins did an article on our product for their Gazette, so I wanted to make sure that I'm hitting all even my own personal, all BusyCraft, all my company's accounts, and I use that to hit them out, to send out.
So you're using Hootsuite as an aggregator, right? Pulling all of your contacts together.
And then I can go back, because I also make sure I use shrink their links through them, or if I shrink something, that way I can go back and see who's clicking, how many times they're clicking, what content is really getting a lot of attention, or whether it's traffic to our site being generated from. So it's kind of, so I would, if someone click through one of my links, I can go back and try to track and see if they actually went to the site or things like that. So it takes a lot of different things, but I try to get a feel of how people are responding to us, our message.
Analytics is huge. If you can't measure it, it's not worth your time. If you can't measure it, how will you know if it's successful or not? And tracking what fails in a campaign or in a marketing effort or in a social media output is equally as important as knowing what works. Because if it fails, you don't want to do it again, right? But you're not going to know a year down the road, you won't remember that particular activity or campaign wasn't as successful because you haven't tracked it and you haven't gone back and reflected and looked at it again. So build your brand identity to your specific targets. Create those relationships. There has to be an emotional connection. You have a variety of products and services and offerings that you're trying to get out to a variety of communities. If it's not resonating with one community, it's time to move on and try different communities. And that's what we found with this company that was doing the direct mail pieces. They were blanketing areas they weren't getting any business from. When they refined their list and they took their list down from 36,000 names down to, I think it was 12,800 names, they had an incredible response. They spent less money, they had higher quality leads, and they were specific targeted leads and relationships that they were able to build.
Do you have any experience using, I guess, crowdfunding or Kickstarter as a launch pad for a marketing campaign?
We've seen some of them work very well. In fact, I think it's an ETC company, Greenspacers, has done an exceptional job. And one of the projects that they wanted to launch, they weren't sure where the funding was coming from, so they put it out there. The Kickstarter is what they used. And they were able to raise the money that they wanted in the time frame that they wanted. Does it work for everybody? No. You have to be compelling. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and create a relationship, and you have to give something back, right?
Project Otto also did.
Project Otto, exactly. So we've worked with a couple of companies that have done it. It doesn't work for everybody, but you're going to find that all of the different things that we talk about are not going to work for everybody. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, any of those social media platforms, the Kickstarter, any of those kind of things, you have to really identify your audience, know who you're speaking to, refine your message. I think probably this morning you went through and introduced your companies and who you were and got all of that out. By the last session, and maybe I'll pop back and test it out, you have to get it down to 14 words. So how many of you spoke more than 14 words today? All of you, right? We all do. Come on, we all do. You need to refine it down to 14 words because that's the attention span of a gnat that you're going to have with me when we first meet. There's too many other things. There's too many distractions going on, too many other things vying for my attention. You have to be right there, right on, and meaningful to me. and then you have to do it again for Maggie, and then you have to do it again for Fulia. And it has to be a message that's going to resonate with all of us. Right? That's a hard thing to do, isn't it? Trying to refine your messaging to a multiple audience. How many of you within your businesses have very diverse audiences? What type of audience do you work with?
Real estate industry, so a variety of professions within that.
So everything from the construction phases to the build-outs to probably REITs and
Yeah. Absolutely.
Across the board.
Yeah, so it's everything from like construction up to design.
sure.
Yes.
And all the different personalities, right? If you just even took real estate, there's 1,000 personalities in there, right? Good. And you?
Different occupational groups.
Okay. So your message may have to be slightly tweaked based on the occupational group that you're working. We do a lot of work on the marketing side of our business. We do an outsourced marketing side in addition to the educational workshops that we do. And we have customers that are in hospitality and finance and construction. And I can tell you hospitality to construction, the same message is not going to resonate across platforms. If you try to take that same message and put it forward into a finance community or into technology, it's not going to resonate the same as it does with that owner of that landscaping or construction company. It's a very different, your messaging at the core doesn't change. Your messaging is who you are and what you do, but the way you present it to your different audience types, your audience personas, is going to be slightly different. Your brand isn't going to change, your logo isn't going to change, but how you approach that audience must change. You have to just figure out which one works for you. Facebook updates does not work well for lots of B2B companies. It works exceptionally well for B2C companies. So you may have a Facebook page just to stay current and dab your toe into the waters of social media and social marketing, but it may not be what drives more of your referrals, more of your references, more of your testimonials, more of your customers. You may, go ahead.
I'm not quite at the social media marketing stage yet,
Okay.
but my customer is not really known for being very present on social media. I'll mostly be marketing to school districts, kind of larger enterprise institutions. What do you think about, for sales, having more of a direct marketing campaign, but using social media to establish yourself in the larger space as like a thought leader?
Absolutely. And I think, so those of you that may not have heard a question, and what I think your question is you're working with a market that currently isn't, and probably generationally so, isn't as engaged with social media. Should you use that as a platform? Absolutely. And the reason being is that generational gap is shrinking. Educators are starting to incorporate iPads into the classroom. They're starting to incorporate iPads into presentations. They're starting to engage one another. My daughter's school actually has a Twitter account for each of the teachers in the AP session. And what they do is they tweet out any updates to help them through with prep for the AP test. So I think that you're going to start to see that evolve. And if you've laid the right platform and you've kept it going and the momentum is there, it's a supporting character in your overall strategy. It's not your primary character. How are you? Go ahead, Maggie.
The thing that Facebook is good for in that scenario where you're more B2B and I think it's a good branding establishment. So when you said thought leadership, that really clicked for me because
Absolutely.
yes, we are a B2B company, but we do a lot on Facebook because we write blogs and we share articles and we do it because we want that branding recognition, and that's what Facebook is good for. Because even though the companies that you're going to be selling to aren't social media aware, the people who work for them are.
So again, don't rule it out, but know what your primary target and where your primary target audience is looking for you, or for businesses like you, or for services like you. And it's not always going to be the same for your company versus your company. It's going to be very different, and what works for you may not work for you. And you have to find that, and it's not easy. I'm not making it sound like it's easy on purpose. It's not an easy thing to do. The more you know your audience and the more time you spend really documenting who your sweet spot client is, right? You should have 3 client personas. You should have your primary persona. That's the overall large reaching primary target area where you're going to make your most money. You should have a secondary and a tertiary market and customer persona as well. There are going to be people on the periphery that may stumble upon you and utilize your service or your products. So knowing who your primary, your secondary, and your tertiary markets are is important to knowing where you're going to target and have them look for you and to try to reach out to them for business. How many of you have products or services that you could utilize Pinterest on? What does your company do? No, I'm pointing to you.
So we have a social network tailored specifically to grad students.
Okay. Do you think grad students are on Pinterest?
Yes. I've thought about Pinterest, but haven't really figured out
How to use it.
for our purposes.
And that's what we hear the most. Some people will rule things out because they don't know how to approach it. And you can't rule that out without finding out from your audience if that's a place that they would potentially look for you on. So Pinterest is pictures and images and recipes and things like that, right? So some of those things in those forums could be pictorial. There are ways to make them pictorial. I'm not saying Pinterest would work for you, but don't rule it out until you've really taken a look at it and asked your audience, what is it that they're looking for and where they're looking for? What kind of business do you run?
It's site survey software
Okay,
for real estate professionals. Like
that's
architects.
fabulous for Pinterest. Have you thought about it?
Thought about it, but
CAD
haven't found
drawings,
connection yet.
CAD drawings, and you can set Pinterest up so that it can be specifically targeted, and you have to have a password, a login to be able to access that group. You can set them up in a group environment, just like you can create groups on Facebook. So it might be something that you think about. Realtors specifically, not so much on the building side, but realtors specifically are all over Pinterest. 70% of realtors are female, and they're on it. So it might be another avenue for you to reach your business. What kind of business do you do? I'm gonna pick on everybody.
Sorry,
You?
we're together.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you're gonna take the out. How about some other side of your business?
How about some other side of the business? Using-
What other areas, so Pinterest, do you use YouTube? Could you see
Yeah,
ways
we
to use YouTube?
I mean, we have some videos, some instructional videos, or
Good.
just promotional videos on YouTube too.
Okay, so those instructional videos have frames. Those frames could be utilized on Pinterest potentially. Just trying to get you to think outside of the box. Not saying that, again, any one of these activities is right for every one of you, but I want you to think outside the box, and that's hopefully what you're going to learn through the launch box, is getting out of your comfort zone a little bit. You're in a great room, a great environment, in a non-competitive environment where you can each ask one another. You know, you've got a built-in focus group, which unfortunately a lot of business owners don't have. That's one of the beauties of being part of the ETC. We talked about a lot of all these different outreach and event sharing. How many of you go to trade shows or will go to trade shows with your business? Makes sense. Good. Possibly?
Not sure.
How many of you have thought of using Eventbrite, Meetup, Hangout to promote that you're going to be there, even if you don't have a booth? You can invite all of your contacts to network with you. It's one way to find out who's going to be there, who's going to be in attendance. Even though it's not your event or your trade show or your conference, you can still create an Eventbrite and send it out. You can do it on Facebook. Send out the invitation to see who's going to be there. It gets people talking, and that's what you want them to do. If they're talking about you, then they're sharing that out with their friends in any of their social networks as well. How many of you blog? None of you? You have a blog site?
Yeah, we have
You're
some-
halfway there?
Well, no, we have someone that writes for different business stuff.
Okay.
It's great for SEO. It's awesome for
That's
SEO.
exactly right. That's exactly where I was going. If you're not blogging now, put it on your list, on your to-do list. Blogging increases the amount of content that you have available, and content is where the Google, Bing, and Yahoo crawlers aim. They want to see the words. They want the content to be there. And the quickest and easiest way is to blog. You can repost blogs. You can engage in microblogging, which is the Facebook and the Twitter feeds. If you don't have blog, put it on your to-do list to at least consider. How many of you don't have a blog because you don't like to write? Couple? Why wouldn't you have a blog? It's just something you haven't gotten to? Yeah.
Time.
So many other, time and resource, right? That's the crux of all evil. There's not enough hours in the day, especially when you're getting things launched and off the ground. Keep it in the back of your mind and maybe task yourselves with saying, I'm going to do one blog a quarter. It's only 4 blogs a year. Somehow, some way we can fit it in. 4 blogs a year will at least get you started and get you in the habit. Make sure that if you put it up, we use a couple sites. So we use Blogger just because it reaches a different audience. We also have our blog on our own website. And again, we do that specifically for the SEO benefit.
So what is the right number for blogging? 2 times a month? Like what is the?
It's different again. There's no blanket right number. So for us, we try to blog twice a month. Some of our customers blog every week. Some of our customers blog once a quarter. Whatever it is that you start, be consistent with it. If you start blogging every week, people are going to start expecting it every week. And when they don't see anything for the next 3 weeks or the next 4 weeks or 5 weeks, oh, I bet they've gone out of business. I haven't seen anything from them. You don't want to set that perception that things might be difficult or tough. Once you set a precedent, you need to keep it up. And that's why I'm saying if you can commit to 4 blogs a year, that's not so hard to keep up with. When you commit to 4 blogs a month, that's incredibly hard with where you guys are positioned right now to keep up with.
With application product launches, blogs are often used to keep the growing community informed of releases and fixes and all those things.
Absolutely. And you could do a targeted blog. You may follow other blogs and repost their blogs. And to get yourself started, that's okay. Just make sure you give credit where credit is due, right? There's a lot of copyright things you don't want to cross, but make sure you're giving credit where credit is due.
Do you find any of your companies or companies you've come across have hired outside or in-house resources
Absolutely.
just to deal with blogging for smaller companies?
I do a lot of that.
Maggie is
About
a resident
industries I
blogger.
have no clue about, but you'd be amazed.
So you're
what you can
blogging
find
for
when you-
your clients?
Yes.
So what's your methodology? I mean, let's say you have limited knowledge of their industry. You
Ask
just,
her about her deck blogs.
yeah.
I know more about, you want to know about, low maintenance decking, I'm the gal to see now. But I set up Google alerts to see kind of what's being talked about. I, talk to my client, get some ideas from them. One of the suggestions that I see at Lunchbox workshops a lot is, if you don't know what to write about, walk around with your iPhone notepad open, or even put it in go old school with paper and a journal, and just write down things that you have read, things that you have seen. And then what it'll do is it'll help trigger an idea later on when you're ready to sit down and actually focus on it.
And
So-
trust me, you can convert any holiday into a blog about what you do.
Right.
Yeah, she's a master of that, actually.
Just out of curiosity, so your company is offering these services for your clients. I'm assuming a lot of other people may be offering these services. How do people figure out how to price this stuff? I mean, I'm not asking you what your prices are,
The-
but I
the
mean,
general
how
rule of
do
thumb-
you even start?
The general rule of thumb for pricing for any content writer, and we do a lot of ghost writing too, so whether it's an article or it's a blog or it's social media, it's typically X dollar or X portion of a dollar per word.
Okay.
And that's usually the easiest way. And on average, you can think that a Facebook update should be about 350 to 450 words. A tweet is under 120 words and characters. You start to wrap that around. Industry standards set some of that precedent. And then, and that precedent is set here, so it's at the C level, right? You can go up or you can go down based on the quality of the content, how much research. I can tell you Maggie didn't know anything about deck refinishing. She did a lot of research, and that wasn't necessarily billable time to a client, but it was time to get her up to speed so that her blogs were effective. And then the other thing that we do is any of the content writing, and anybody you hire for content writing should give you first right of refusal. You should get the approval right before that blog is posted.
Right.
Don't ever let anyone post anything on your behalf
Right.
that you have not yourself read and agree with.
You can save your clients some money now. You can be the expert interviewee in their videos now.
The funny thing is, because this particular client is in construction and couldn't care less about the blog. Intellectually, he knows he needs it, so that's the reason why. I write him, he doesn't see them literally until they post. I mean, we have conversations, we usually have 4 meetings with them a year, face-to-face, that talk about, what we're gonna do. And then, pretty much.
She's on her own.
I go from there. Now, I have a new client that is a veterinarian, and she will be blogging as well, and she'll have a lot more physical input into what's in the blog, because she just cares a lot. She has a lot more to say about what she does than.
And she also enjoys writing more.
Right.
So some of our clients, they just don't. And you're
And
going
the
to
construction
find
guys couldn't care less about that, so, that's the reason why I do all their stuff. But, so it kind of depends on the client, about how much you'll get in there.
Thank you.
But in general, it's a dollar amount per word. Goes from
That's good to know. Thank you.
If you don't like to write, there is absolutely nothing wrong with having a ghostwriter or a blog writer, a junior person in your company, someone else in your company that may love to write. Have them write the blogs for you. Have them put together the social media. For a couple of our customers, we'll put together a theme for the month, an overall theme, and then their Twitter updates, their Facebook updates, their blogs, their direct mail will all circulate around that as a cohesive campaign. But they'll know every week what needs to be written, and they'll assign it out within their own organizations. It's not that they always have us do that for them. So tap the resources that you have. Everybody in your companies, you guys are startups, you're smaller companies, you're getting ready to launch, or you're looking to expand your launch. Utilize the other people within your organization. And people that you think may not like to write may surprise you. They may actually have very good skills. And come on, Word these days fixes grammar. And spelling, right? How can you leverage? You can build your brand. We've talked a little bit about that. If you have a new brand coming out, you're a new company, you've got a new logo, a new message, a new look, a new feel, and you're trying to enter a diluted market, you're trying to enter a saturated market. How do you set yourselves apart? Any thoughts? How do you build brand? Mm-hmm. How can you leverage social media to build brand?
Well, it's a place to put your message out. That's your key differentiator. I guess it's just a way to communicate.
It's a communicating tool. Make sure you always have your logo, that your colors, your font, where you're going to learn from Elizabeth some things about a style guide. Be consistent. You'll hear 3 words, and I'll quiz you if I ever see you in the hall. The 3 words you need to know above and beyond anything else is consistent, repeatable messaging. If you can't be consistent and repeatable and have that same message over and over being at the core of your value, you're not going to build your brand. If I give you a message of what we do, and then I tell you a message of what we do, and then I share another message with you that's dramatically different, there's no consistency there. You could talk to this gentleman back here and be thinking you're talking about 2 separate companies. To leverage your brand and to build your brand, be consistent. Use your mark, use your logo, use your colors. Don't deviate. We have, again, I'm going back to this one client that we work a lot with, and we've helped him grow into his brand. His name previously was the name of his company, plus a whole lot of other words describing all the activities that they do. Nobody cares that he does decks and porches and patios and porticos and gazebos and so on. All they care is that he focuses on outdoor design. So we've shrunk all of those words, because sometimes he would use it as decks, patios, porches, blah, 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 and other times it would be patios and decks and porches and fences and then decks. It was never consistent. His messaging was going out, even though it ultimately said the same thing if you got to the end of the sentence or the end of the content. What people were seeing each time was different. The colors that they used varied depending on what they were doing. The logo that they initially created did not work well with a white background. What color's paper? White. If you don't have something to have that logo pop, and you've got a logo that has white in it, you're not going to be able to utilize it, and until you go to print it out, do you actually realize that? So you have to stop and think, and actually picking font and color is critical, and it's important to knowing who you are. There's Love it or hate it is one of my favorite lines. Love it or hate it, your logo for 3 to 5 years. Why?
Because you don't want to change it,
Why don't you?
because it changes the recognition of your brand when the consumer.
It's not consistent and repeatable, right? Logo changes, and probably one of the worst examples of logo changes, anybody have any ideas? It just happened about 2 years ago.
I know that one.
I'm sorry? Nope.
Although that is a good example.
Who? Nope, not Microsoft. JCPenney. JCPenney. They had the same logo for over 80 years. JCPenney. Now they've gone to an empty square with a little red square, and it's now JCP. Gap did the same thing. Colonel Sanders, about 8 years ago, changed the iconic impression of the Colonel on the buckets of chicken. He changed it and they made it more animated. Their chicken sales dropped dramatically. The recipe hadn't changed. The food hadn't changed. The price hadn't changed. But it wasn't the same. People want it to be what they've always known it to be.
Is there an example ever in history of a brand change being a good idea? 'Cause
Yes.
I don't think I've ever heard one.
McDonald's. McDonald's has taken their logo, and if you look back to their original logo, it was a very thick, very spread out M. And we use this in a couple of the examples when Elizabeth gets into branding. And it was very wide, and the letter itself was a very thick M. If you look at it now, they've brought it in. The M, the width of the actual M, the big golden arches, has now shrunk. It's a thinner M. So they're trying to portray that they've moved themselves into this thinner, more health-conscious world, right? They've changed their menus a little bit, but most people didn't know that logo changed.
Well, just say that's a very incremental change. as opposed
Absolutely.
to, like all the other examples, like when Allfirst, you remember Allfirst Bank?
Mm-hmm.
When they did that, it was supposed to be a window, but it looked like a laptop.
Yes.
And they spent $2.5 million on the logo.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most ridiculous story I've ever heard.
Somebody lost their job over that one, don't you know?
So love or hate your logo, have it something that you can land on and stick with at least 3 to 5 years. You don't want to change it as you're starting to put it out there to get known. People aren't going to recognize you. They're not going to buy from you. They haven't built a relationship. Right? JCPenney sales in the South were always high. JCP in the South now is having to run discounts, which with this new offering, they said that they would never do. They've now had to start running discounts just to get people back into their stores. How about lead generation through social media? What are some things you can do?
You can advertise through social media.
Advertising, you can put offers, right? You can post incentives, right? For the 500th person who likes our fan page, you'll get this case study. It's not going to cost you anything, and everything doesn't have to always cost you something. But your time, and your time is valuable, don't get me wrong, but it's not something that you have to put an outlay of cash right up at the front. There are ways you can leverage and drive more leads. Include your website. If you want a lot of activity to come through your website, have your website on your letterhead. Have your website on your signature line. Have your website on everything that you put out there, certainly on your business cards. Your phone number. How many of you have a kitschy sort of phone number? So the one client is 1-800-DECK. Most people on your smartphones can't dial and figure out what DECK equates to in numbers. You know, a bunch of the radio stations, WPOC, the country radio station, always gives out their phone number as 1-800-391-WPOC. How many people are they missing in their audience to dial in for these contests or campaigns? Because the phones these days don't allow them to dial WPOC. It doesn't equate. So clever will only get you so far. Don't let it overrule what you're trying to do by being clever and using something. If you're going to use letters in your phone number, make sure that you also put the numbers there. Not because people are that lazy and can't look up the numbers. They may not have a landline phone to do so.
The other thing too, and this is just a personal thing for me, but make sure that your phone number and your address, if you're selling something, is on the front page. I cannot, and I don't know if you guys experience this yourselves, but I cannot stand to go to a website when I'm looking to find that information and I have to dig 3 clicks in for the phone number and the address. I'm done, I'm off. You know, it's like, okay, now you've upset me and I'm not going to play with you, you know. So that's just something for me. I always tell people in website design, just phone number, address, first page, just make it easy.
I'd like to get your opinion on this because this is something that matters for us, but the area code matters.
It absolutely does matter. Take a look in Maryland. We have, what, 4 area codes?
I found out is people don't trust 443 and they like 410. You know,
They do,
Change is
And it's-
hard.
but it's generational,
Yeah.
right? How many of you remember 240? That's the area code for the Beltsville, Laurel, that whole area. And I had a 240 number for a long time, and even my father would call and say, what is this number? Phone numbers are important. Having them, to Maggie's point, your website should be mobile ready, because a lot of people are not carrying around their laptops anymore. They're carrying iPads, they're carrying their smartphones. If your website is not mobile ready and your phone number doesn't appear because it's located someplace different on your web page, you want to make sure your phone number is up in the right upper hand corner. Make sure that your web page is mobile ready so that when I'm driving around looking at houses to buy or at different products or services, or I have a need for something, if I pull you up on my mobile device, that I can easily just click that and it'll call it for me. How many of you invest in, and it doesn't have to be financial resources, but even time resources in research and development?
We're all doing that.
To some degree. Research and development will help you further identify the market, the industry, all of those items, and help you be able to refine the outreach mechanisms in order to reach your proper market. Product or service launches is another great way to have a new offering. The Ford Focus, I don't know if you remember in the video we just saw, Ford launched its product. It was the highest clicked and the most purchases made within a 7-day time frame of any other automobile launch. It's huge. Leverage it, use it to your advantage.
Going back to that, just what was different about their approach? Because I thought I remember reading on the news like GM decided to pull out all their ads from Facebook.
Mhm.
Why didn't it work for GM and why did Ford, do you know why, what was different about their
The
approaches?
Ford Focus was targeted at a younger market, a younger demographic. It's all about the audience. GM initially tried that with the Cadillac, I think it was. That's not the market that's on social media. It just isn't. It's generational and demographic related. It goes back to, and I know I've preached it all day, it goes back to knowing who your audience is and where they're looking for you. The folks that are buying the Cadillacs probably are not going to be hunting for a car. They're going to go to the consumer sites. They're going to go through other things potentially on the web, but they're not going to use Facebook for it. They're your audience. Customer retention. How many of you address your existing customers and leverage them when you're putting social media and social marketing efforts together? It takes far more effort, energy, and financial resources to acquire a new client than it does to retain the clients that you currently have. Right? Think about that sales process, everything that you have to go through to acquire a new account, a new customer. How hard is it to keep those that you already have happy? Don't ever discount the retention quality. When you put together your sales goals, you should always make sure that not only are you targeting for new business and new sales, but that you also have a retention target. One of the clients that we work with is a division of JP Morgan Chase. They have a 98% client retention. It's almost unheard of. But they have an entire group that focuses nothing on but retaining these customers, reaching out to them, talking to them, and not just when they need a reference or a referral. They send them out articles, they provide them information, they keep their existing customers engaged. And that's really how you also grow your business, right? If you have 100 happy customers, they're apt to tell one of their friends each. So now you have another 100 potential prospects. If you have 100 customers and 50 of those customers are unhappy with you, they're going to tell 10 people they're unhappy with you. Now you have 500 people that are not happy. Okay? Retain your customers and make sure you don't lose sight of them when you're doing social media. Don't just put things out there to attract the new. That old Girl Scout song, keep the old, but go for the new, but keep the old. Partner and channel communication. How many of you within your business work with other partners, work with other businesses to either grow or to add on products? Anybody? You probably do, right? In what you do, have partner relationships, whether it's with realtors or other companies?
Yeah, sure.
Make sure that some of your efforts in your social media, if you have 4 weeks in a month, 1 week the campaign targeting up toward your theme could be focused on retention, the next week focused on driving new customers, the next week on your partners or your vendors. Again, you want to include all of your audience, and that's why I ask you to create these audience personas. Know who you're talking to. And then back to your point with the schools, thought leadership. You want to be seen as an expert within your industry, within your market, right? And one way to do that is to make sure that you have content out there that's attractive to your audiences. One of the strongest social strategies has actually come out of Starbucks and how they apply it across all of their platforms. So they're a brick and mortar store. They have an e-commerce site where you can purchase your coffee mugs and coffees and teas and a variety of things. What they've strived to do is engage, inform, educate, entertain, and inquire. And the way that they've utilized those topics is through their loyalty programs, through outreach and relationships, creating one-on-one connections, speaking specifically. So they've just recently launched a new brand, if you will, within their organization. Do you know what they've recently launched? I'm sorry? The juice? Mm-mm. This was a big, big splash, and it's been going on for since January, I think is when their initial target was. Right, that was one of their big things. Square is a mechanism, yep. But their latest launch was actually another coffee. It was blonde. Exactly, right? That was a huge launch for them. So they knew they were missing a huge portion of the market. They had gotten the tea drinkers because they partnered, to your point, with Tazo, and that was huge for them last year. This year, they realized that the market they were losing was those folks that wanted that lighter version of coffee. Me, give me straight up espresso, double shot, I'm good, but my husband, not so much.
Yeah, they wanted the Dunkin' Donuts crowd.
They wanted the Dunkin' Donuts crowd. That's exactly it. And they did a big splash. I was up at a trade show in New York, and on every corner by the Javits Convention Center, which is where I was a kiosk set up. It was bitter cold, and they were giving out free blonde coffee. You could go back and forth 10 times. They didn't care. They were saturating the market, they were getting the word out, and then they started all of their other campaigns. But the first place they launched it was at the Javits Convention Center on the street corners. You know, at first it was kind of odd having some guy come up saying, hey, you want a free cup of coffee? You kind of back off until you see the kiosk and the guy with the Starbucks shirt on. So be different. Think outside the box. Know who your customers are. Make it personal. You can grow your business even after you've gotten as big as a company like Starbucks and has this great market share. There's always another customer that you can attract and can go after. These are just some of the mechanisms that they've used. They're on Twitter, they're on Facebook, they're on YouTube. They still consistently and repeatedly update their website. People my age are more inclined to be on the website than following every tweet that they send out. My daughter, however, will stop at Starbucks when she's gotten a tweet that she's got $1 off. So let's take a look. The questions you want to ask yourself are those questions that you learned back in elementary school. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. All of those questions. What do you want to get out of your social interaction? If you don't go into it with a plan and you just throw spaghetti at the wall, you might have some things come out of it, but you might not. Do you want to invest that kind of time if you're not going to get a return? Right? You can't afford to. At this juncture of your business, You need to be focused and know what you want to get out of something. How many of you ask your clients or your clients ask you about return on investment, right? Do they all want to know the ROI? They want to know what's in it for them. So actually write out, what is it that you want to get out of a social interaction? And it doesn't have to be financial. What you want to get out of a social interaction may just be conversation, right? It may be just to start a conversation within a group or a community, perhaps that you haven't reached before. It may be that you want to, out of this interaction, you want to get 5 new leads this month. If that's the case, you need to know what it is you want to get out of it. Okay? Who are your customers? We've talked a lot about that. And where do they get their information from? People my age are going to go here. People my daughter's age are going to go here. If you're targeting both of us, you need to figure out how to get that message across in both platforms. And how will you measure your success? You're doing a great job. You're marrying up the analytics, and you're using Hootsuite and some of the other tools. What are some of the other things you guys are using to measure your success? Whether it's success in launching a product or it's success in creating a message. Anything?
You could do a survey like response rates.
Surveys are great. It gives you a more immediate feedback, right? It gives you some instant information. When you do a survey, are you doing an electronic survey? How are you doing your surveys?
Haven't done survey, but
Mhm.
probably I'll just go to the hospital, interview the patients, ask them to do a question.
Okay, so you'll do a one-on-one personal survey. Good.
I tried a survey a while ago. Maybe like we can all figure out what I did wrong here. So I put one out, and I think I had probably about I don't know, maybe like 100 or so followers on Twitter, and I'd say maybe 30 relevant followers on
Okay.
Twitter. Maybe a little more, but nobody took the survey. It was 5 questions. It was short. It was through SurveyMonkey. Did I say something wrong? Did I need to create an incentive? And I thought about it, and I said, what is a person's, other than like helping me out, what is their incentive to take this survey? So maybe you can figure out.
Did they have an incentive to take it? Tell me what the survey was, what you were driving from the survey.
The survey was, I wanted to figure out like, what are some of the things that frustrated the professionals that we're marketing to about the current state of the art, or what they had to deal with as far as dealing plans and drawings? It's like, and I think the tagline was like, tell us like something you hate about carrying drawings around for architecture or something.
Okay.
So
And nobody responded back.
0. No, I think no retweets or anything, because I look on Buffer just to see like who clicks it and stuff. Not to say that people click any other stuff either, but what?
But you need to build up your following, right?
Okay.
But to have 30 relevant people on there, at least 1 or 2 of them, you would have thought would take that.
Gotcha.
If you take a look back at those 30 people that you consider relevant, how often and frequently are they tweeting? Is it a lot of tweeting? Is it once a month that they'll send out a tweet when they remember they've got a Twitter account?
Yeah, you know what?
That's not the way to reach them then.
Right. Okay. That's probably the point, because I'm
That's
dealing
not the
with.
way to reach them. If they're not
construction
tweeting
folks.
every minute of every hour of every day,
Mhm.
they're not hardcore Twitter followers, and they're not going to do anything outside the norm. They might see your survey in 2 months because they're finally going back through reading your tweets.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you have to figure out, again, your audience, who they are, and where they're communicating the most. Sometimes, for very busy professionals, a quick tweet to their inbox, or an email, a direct message into their inbox. Hey, take this, and I'll send you a $10 Starbucks gift card. If you really want the information, and you do, you want that feedback, it may cost you a little something, and it doesn't have to be a $10, it could be a $5, it could be a free case study, it could be whatever it is you have to offer. But sometimes people want, if they're going to click through for even 5 questions, and that doesn't sound like a lot.
Right.
It may take them, but just from what you're telling me, I would say it's because they're not on Twitter enough.
Okay.
That's not their primary mode of communication. And you need to find out from them what is.
Okay.
You can put a survey up on your website. Do an email blast out to your followers. Do it on Twitter, even though they might see it, they might not. Do it on Facebook, do it on LinkedIn, send the email blast out. Drive them all to your website, and then they can click through. Sometimes people don't want to wait for the next page of questions to come up. They want to see all 5 questions, they can hit the radio buttons and be done. So,
Gotcha.
does
Okay.
that help?
Mhm.
What tactics have you seen that have been effective at recruiting and gathering user feedback for product development efforts, like what he was trying to do from other clients?
I was gonna say, like, we did like a logo redesign for SurveySnap, and, you know, this was my experience with that exact thing, is, you know, we wanted to engage people and get them to give feedback on the different logos and what they thought, and I sent an email, like, through my Gmail account, you know, like, I made it more personal. I didn't have a long list of people anyway, it was only like 30 emails, and I said, hey, I really like your feedback, I consider you kind of in from the beginning on the SurveySnap thing, and I consider your opinion very highly.
Did you all just hear what he said? He's now made it personal.
Yeah.
He's built that relation. I consider you in from part of the beginning. He's brought it in.
And I kind of gathered that from doing, when we first launched the product, you know, I took the demo around and I showed it to people and I said, hey, you're on the ground floor, you get to have some input on this. You know, so I kind of continued to relay that message to these same people that I've already met with and say, hey, I really value your opinion. And so kind of you know, we're going to build that list. We want to continue to build
Sure.
it and say, we're going to call it our SurveySnap Insiders list.
Good.
And, you know, kind of build that around. So when you do have, I mean, we're going to send them wireframes and new features and stuff like that. But yeah, out of the 30 people, 9 of them
That's great.
gave their feedback and responded and put comments on the logos and everything.
In general, less than 1% of people overall respond to surveys. I'm not telling you not to do surveys, I'm telling you to set realistic expectations of what you expect to get back from them. So if you get 3 back, consider that great. So there are other ways you want to reach out. The fact that you got 9, that's significant.
And I think it's because I personally
Sure.
have talked with them before.
They're now an insider, they're part of the in club. Everybody wants to feel special. You've created a loyal following by putting that messaging out to them. And I love the name, the SurveySnap Insiders. I think that's fantastic. You've created that. Hotels have been doing it for years. Airlines have been doing it for years, right? How many of you have at least one airline or hotel frequent card in your wallet? No?
I don't travel, so.
You don't travel? All right, then you're excused.
Do you have a restaurant one? Do you have like a restaurant?
Or a grocery store.
Safeway, yeah.
Safeway, right? It's all the same thing. It's all a loyalty following. I tend to travel a lot, and I stay at Hilton. And the reason I stay at Hilton is because they'll also consume my airline points. And as much as I travel, I'll get waters in my room, which may not sound like much, but when you're getting in and landing at midnight, and they all of a sudden have a snack and waters waiting for you, and you haven't eaten all day, that's huge. They know what my hot buttons are, and they drive toward it, and that's exactly what you're doing. And everybody wants to feel special and included, right? So however you can incorporate that into your business, make it personal for them. We went through some of these, but I want to point out on this specific area is not only to know your objective and your goals, but how will you measure that success? What are those top 2 or 3 key performance indicators that are going to give you a sense of success or failure? Audience, timeline, and milestones. When you sent your survey out over Twitter, did you give them a day to respond, a week to respond, or a month to respond, or just indefinite?
Just indefinite.
People respond to things that are more urgent. So if I know that I've got to respond to this by tomorrow, I'll make a decision at that point whether I'm going to respond or not. But if it's indefinite, I'll get back to it later. You know, I get these little pop-ups from time to time. HP wants to send you an update on the printer that you have. I always click, ask me later. I don't have time to deal with that right now. Thank you. Thank you.
That's great. I'd love to read that right in the middle of the day.
Yep, when you're right in the middle of something and you have to, yep. And heaven forbid if I don't see it and I'm busy doing something else and I come back and now it's taking control of my machine and it's paused it and I have to get into my computer. So you want to create some sense of urgency when you do a survey, okay? See, I'm one of your big fans now. We're going to talk about aggregators. social media aggregators are fantastic, and the way that you're using it is pulling together data and reports and analytics. Another way to do it is if any of you tell me, I don't have time to do social media, I'm too busy, I'm swamped, I'm running the business, I'm building the widget, I just don't have time. Yes, you do. 2 hours, the last Saturday of every month, I take my little laptop and my little can and I go sit down at Starbucks or wherever you're comfortable, out of your own environment. Go someplace unique, and for 2 hours, I create my updates and I put them into Hootsuite. And I schedule them to go out at all the incremental times that I want them to go out. If you look on our social media page, you'll see Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We have updates every week, week in, week out. It's not because I'm there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday sending a new update. I've probably preloaded them all last month. This way it looks like I'm active, it keeps the content flowing, it keeps people engaged. Now we do monitor it, so if somebody comments on it or shares it or repurposes it, we can comment back and create that conversation and community. But at a minimum, worst case scenario, I at least have a consistent, repeatable social media platform campaign that goes out every month.
Will this go out to Twitter, Facebook, blog?
Whoever you set it up to, all of them. It's an aggregator. It pulls all of them in together, and it will shorten the message for Twitter,
So it's a single message, but it's being
repurposed. And you can even set it so if you want it to look like you're really on top of it, I can set my Facebook update for 9 a.m., I can set my Twitter update for 12:05 p.m., and I can set my LinkedIn update for 4:45. I'm now with it because I'm on social media all day. Either that or I have nothing else to do.
Which one of these you like best?
I love Hootsuite. I think they've got the best reporting, but again, find what works for you. And don't jump right into the paid option. Test drive the free options first. Find out what really does work for you. There's a ton of them. Socialite is, any of you guys on Mac, you no longer have an excuse. Socialite is an aggregator for Mac. There's one out there for everybody. Take a look at them, find what works for you. I personally like the Hootsuite, but that's my preference. It's easy to use. If you can use Word, you can use Hootsuite. It's that easy.
Twitter took down TweetDeck
Yeah,
2 days ago.
they're coming back. They're revamping it. So we'll see if it does anything at this point or not. I wasn't a fan of TweetDeck. Had you used it?
No, I actually, whenever I saw they were taking it down, I
You went to it?
went, let me check this out.
For me, it was cumbersome. It was cumbersome. It was difficult to use, and I couldn't personalize it enough. Where in Hootsuite, like I said, you can do it. You can schedule different sites to be updated at different times. With TweetDeck, you couldn't.
So the reason I wanted to do it was because I wanted to create different personas for the different people, since our audience is different from our paying customer.
Sure.
And what happened now, we just have one site, and so I didn't feel like it differentiated the message
Okay.
very well. So I said, TweetDeck, that I can create multiple personas and I can manage those a lot easier. But then it's down, so it's.
But you can manipulate Hootsuite
Yeah.
into doing that.
Yes.
Takes a little more effort, but you can manipulate it and it's consistent. Yeah. Good. Do you have, so you have 2 different audiences, let's just say you have 2 audiences. For your website, do you address both audiences or how are you approaching that?
Right now, it's, we have actually multiple different types of customer. But for the student, it really is the landing page for them to get into the site. We have landlords that post housing, so on there it's very discreetly for them to see that they can post their housing.
Sure.
For the university that pays, that's another how to incorporate them going there and finding out more information, because right now it's more face-to-face things and giving or emailing them the guest login and stuff.
Okay.
So
Have you used microsites much within your overall platform? So your general website may be directed to a very broad reaching audience, right? You've just named 3 very different reasons that people would come to your site for. but you can actually launch. So if I click on, if there's a drop down that says, audience or what do you want to do or whatever the navigation is, you can have the drop down for university, for student, for housing, or landlords. And then each one of those can actually take you to a single paged microsite that can be specifically drawn to them. Still keeping your same overall wireframe, still keeping the same look and feel, but that the language is specifically targeted and they don't have to rifle through all the other site information just to get what they want. So if they know that they're a landlord, they can click that navigation and go directly into a landlord-specific area. And that way it's not going to make your overall general audience website too cumbersome.
Yeah, so it's weird because we have a private social network. So you, landlord, those people can't get into the site and trying to provide something. Our brand is BusyGrad. That's how people know us. So when they come to the site, for students, they don't want to see the landlord information or
Right.
us trying to.
They only want to see what's important to them.
Yes, and so we have to create a way, that it's on there, but the students don't feel like we're just making a lot of money off of them.
Exactly.
And it's still a challenge because I know, I looked the other day and all these people, like on our home page, you would think the login button would be the top button that was pushed the most, but it was
Probably
actually
not.
contact us, about us. And I was like, man, we have information there, but is it all the information that we really need?
So if you want people to drive more to the login page,
Well, they do, for students it is, but so there's different purposes. For the landlord, we want them to post housing, right?
Sure.
Investors, we want them to go about us. And then universities, they want to have a case study. Okay, what's my return
sure.
on this? And trying to meet all those demands, but while at the same time, our audience is very important, and you try to keep the feel so that you're not losing your audience and doing all these other things.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know what you think about this idea, but I actually had that idea when I saw Justin's webpage link, and it said get artistship. And then I was just thinking, when we actually advertise for housing, a lot of times we just post on Craigslist or something, like click this link. And I was just thinking, what if we just made a separate URL and we're trying to get housing posts, it's just like post or any kind of post on Hello Post, like make it like post BusyGrad. So it still has our brand name in there,
Exactly.
but it's got a separate purpose. And then we could have another.
That's exactly what I was
Domain
driving
name
to with
for, like-
using microsites. That's absolutely it.
So whenever we were first starting at University of Maryland, Baltimore, and I was going through all the student groups and trying to get them informed about what was going on there. So I created a link that I can actually track back just to see.
Sure.
I can measure if these people, so they would specifically click that link and I can see if the message was effective in that manner. I think posts would be a great idea too.
I think that's fantastic. It's worth a shot. We work with a lot of different companies that utilize microsites, whether they're specifically targeting the 3 different audiences or they want to use it in place of an extranet for some of their vendors to be able to log in and upload information. Some of them want them to upload information, but they want it to go through an approval process first. And that's when having those microsites, those other URLs, that all give the same look and feel and the appearance that it's single-sited, but takes you to different areas. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a try. Bottom line is, whatever your social media platform, you have to have a strategy, you have to have a plan, and you have to know how you're going to measure it. If you don't, how will you know if you're going to be successful or not?
So our audience is architects, engineers, and construction professionals.
Okay.
As far as using social marketing, architects tend to use Twitter and Facebook and whatnot. But as far as marketing to our construction professionals, they don't tend to be as active.
Nope.
Do you have any experience or suggestions for marketing to that particular?
Direct mail, phone calls, and email works really well within, and construction is one of our Sonata's marketing areas as well. They don't respond well to Facebook updates, to Twitter updates. It's just not in their, they work more with their hands than they do on electronics. and they want to be approached in that same manner. They want to create that personal connection in a hand-to-hand type relationship, not in a electronic voice. So it's just what we found, and direct mail for that particular market works really well.
Yeah, they're kind of visual people, so
Mhm.
having your logo where they can see it is important, just like we have trucks or vans or whatever made for clients so that it has their logo on it, because that's how they get a lot of business, is someone sees the truck in the driveway or sees the sign in the
Signage.
yard. And that's kind of the way that they, get known themselves, so.
So you have to take a look at your audience and how are they marketing? Are they using direct mail to reach their customers? Because what they're using is probably what their comfort zone is. And take a look and reflect back to them. Go ahead.
I have a question. So my audience is kind of specific. Like we deal with patients, physical therapists, and hospitals. So
Okay.
for hospitals and therapists, I don't know. I don't think they're very active on the social networks platform. So for reaching out to these kind of people or these large organization hospitals and clinics, what's the best way to suggest to go about it?
I would disagree with you on therapists, only because I've seen that therapists are much more in tune with electronics. They're now keeping patient information, they're keeping their logs, they're not carrying around a lot of files and a lot of paper. So therapists you might want to take another look at, because I think that Facebook and LinkedIn specifically would target that therapist market. Hospitals go back to the same big, large institutions like the schools and the universities. And they're still, again, it's generational, but they're still used to somebody picking up a phone, that big brown box, their black box that sits on your desk, picking the phone up and calling them. They're used to getting letters. It can be typed or handwritten, and they're used to getting email. And that's typically how those larger institutions, again, keep your eye on it, because generationally, that's going to change and evolve. It just hasn't gotten there and caught up yet. Big brick and mortar, still very, very much more traditional marketing aspects. They still, hotels, same thing. So some of the newer brands that we work with, some of the boutique-y brands, the Yotels and things like that, very electronically connected. Some of the larger brands, the Waldorf Astoria, for example, they would rather I send them a handwritten note. And they'll respond far faster, far quicker when I've sent them something in the snail mail or something through email than they ever would dream of. They just don't go onto the sites. They pay somebody on their team to make sure their sites are updated, because they know that they want to reach out to that other demographic, that younger demographic. But the Waldorf Astoria is not posting Twitter updates every day. Okay? We have a wide variety of customers, and they come to us for a wide variety of reasons. The big thing, if I can impress upon you, if I haven't already done so today, is know your audience, measure your information, and don't be afraid to step out of that box. You need to be able to do something different. You need to be able to get your message across. And you can't get your message across if you don't know who you're speaking to. If you hire someone to blog or write or do content for you, make sure they've done it in your voice. Don't let anything go out that you haven't reviewed until you build a comfort level with them. You want whoever's doing your writing to have the voice of the company and the tone of the company, and not personifying their own voice, right? So if you hire a young intern, for example, to come in and write for your company and you're targeting hospitals, the language that they use is just generationally going to be different. So again, identify your audience, create your personas, know how they get their information and where they look for information, and then target them accordingly. Thank you for having me in today. It was my pleasure to come down and speak with you guys. I'm going to be monitoring you all through Elizabeth. And what are the 3 words that I told you to remember, because I'm going to ask you in the hallway? Really?
Consistent,
repeatable
messaging.
There, good. Thank you.